On Christmas, my son shouted, "You're not going on the beach resort. You're not part of this family." I stayed silent. On Monday, I sold the house I paid for and vanished before they even noticed. But let me start from the beginning, because that Christmas morning changed everything I thought I knew about love, family, and my place in this world. I'm Margaret, and I'm 58 years old. For the past 15 years, since my husband Robert died, I've lived in this beautiful colonial house in the suburbs of Sacramento. It's a 4-bedroom home with a wraparound porch and a garden I've tended with my own hands. Every month, I write the mortgage check. Every month, I pay the utilities, the insurance, the property taxes. This house isn't just where I live. It's the foundation I built for my family after we lost everything that mattered. The morning started like every Christmas for the past 5 years. I woke up at 6, put on my red sweater. Before we continue, comment where you're watching from and subscribe to the channel. We'd love to see how far our stories are reaching. The one Derek always said made me look festive, and started preparing the feast. Turkey with herb stuffing, glazed ham, sweet potato casserole, green bean almondine, fresh cranberry sauce, and 3 different pies. I'd been cooking since Thursday, wanting everything to be perfect. Jessica, my daughter-in-law, always complained that I went overboard with the food. "Margaret, we're only 4 people," she'd say with that tone she uses when she thinks I'm being ridiculous. But I couldn't help myself. Christmas was about abundance, about showing love through effort. At least, that's what I believed. Derek arrived at noon with Jessica and their 2 kids, Emma and Jake, ages 8 and 10. I rushed to the door, my heart swelling with that familiar warmth that comes from having your child home. Derek barely looked at me as he walked in, already scrolling through his phone. "Smells good, Mom," he said without looking up. Jessica followed behind him, perfectly dressed in a cream cashmere sweater and designer jeans. She never hugged me anymore. Not since the first year of their marriage, when I apparently hugged too long and made her uncomfortable. Now she just gave me a tight smile and a little wave. "Margaret, you really outdid yourself again," she said. But it didn't sound like a compliment. The kids ran straight to the tree, counting presents like they did every year. I'd spent weeks shopping for them, trying to find the perfect gifts that would make their faces light up. Emma squealed over the art set I'd bought her, and Jake immediately started building with his new Lego set. For a moment watching them, I felt that old Christmas magic. We sat down to dinner at 2 o'clock. I'd set the table with my good china, the set Robert and I got for our wedding 30 years ago. The turkey was perfect, golden, and juicy. The sides were exactly as they should be. I kept glancing around the table, hoping to see satisfaction, gratitude, maybe even a little appreciation. Instead, Derek kept checking his phone between bites. Jessica picked at her food and made comments about carbs. The kids ate quickly and asked to be excused to play with their new toys. "This is delicious, Mom," Derek said at one point, but he said it the same way you'd compliment a restaurant meal. Polite, but distant. After dinner, I started clearing the table while Jessica and Derek settled in the living room with their wine. I could hear them talking in low voices, and something about their tone made me pause. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but the kitchen is right next to the living room, and sound carries. "We should tell her now," Jessica was saying. "Maybe wait until after dessert," Derek replied. "Derek, we've already booked everything. The resort, the flights. She needs to know." My heart started beating faster. "Tell me what?" I set the plates down quietly and strained to listen. I know, it's just, you know how she gets. How she gets about what?" I almost said out loud, but I kept washing dishes, my hands moving mechanically while my mind raced. When I brought out the pumpkin pie, Derek's favorite since he was little, they both got quiet. I served everyone their slices and sat down, sensing something was about to happen. Derek cleared his throat. "Mom, we need to talk to you about something." I set down my fork, my stomach suddenly tight. "What's wrong?" Jessica jumped in before Derek could answer. "Nothing's wrong. We just wanted to let you know about our spring break plans." "Oh?" I forced a smile. "That sounds lovely. Where are you thinking of going?" "Actually," Derek said, not meeting my eyes, "we've already booked it. We're taking the kids to a beach resort in Cabo. All-inclusive, really nice place." I waited for him to say more, to mention dates or ask if I wanted to come, or even just to ask if I could watch their house while they were gone. But he just sat there, eating his pie like that was the end of the conversation. "That sounds wonderful," I said carefully. "When are you going?" "April 15th through 22nd, Jessica answered. "We're so excited. The kids have never been to Mexico." Still, I waited. Surely Derek would mention me somehow, even if it was just to say they'd bring me back a souvenir. But the silence stretched on. Emma started telling me about her friend's birthday party, and the moment passed. After dessert, Derek and Jessica went back to the living room while I cleaned the kitchen. I kept waiting for Derek to come in and say something like, "Mom, I'm sorry we can't include you in the trip." but maybe we can plan something together later. Or even just, I hope you understand. But he never came. Instead, when they were getting ready to leave, Emma ran up to me and threw her arms around my waist. Grandma, I'm so excited about our trip to Mexico. The resort has 3 pools and a kids' club and everything. That sounds amazing, sweetheart, I said, hugging her back and trying to keep my voice steady. That's when Jessica appeared behind Emma, her face flushed with embarrassment and something else. Irritation. Emma, get your coat. We need to go. But Grandma, aren't you excited about our trip too? The room went dead silent. Jessica's face went white. Derek stopped mid-conversation with someone on his phone. Even little Jake looked up from his Legos. I felt like I was falling. Emma's innocent question hung in the air like a bomb about to explode. Emma, Jessica said sharply. Grandma isn't coming with us. Why not? Emma asked, her 8-year-old logic cutting straight to the heart of it. Derek finally put his phone down and walked over to us. I could see the discomfort on his face, but also something else. Something that looked almost like annoyance, as if I was causing a problem by existing in this moment. Emma, it's a family trip, he said. Just for our family. The words hit me like a physical blow. Just for our family. Not including me. But Grandma is family, Emma protested, still holding on to me. That's when Derek said it, the words that would replay in my mind for weeks to come. Emma, Grandma isn't part of our family in that way. This is for our immediate family only. Jessica tried to soften it, but the damage was done. What your daddy means is that this trip is just for Mommy, Daddy, you, and Jake. Grandma has her own life. Her own life. As if the life I'd built around them. The house I maintained for their visits, the holidays I planned around their schedules, the emergencies I'd helped them through, as if none of that was real life. Emma looked confused and sad. Jake had stopped playing with his Legos entirely, and I just stood there still wearing my red Christmas sweater, still smiling because that's what I always did. Of course, I heard myself say, you 4 have a wonderful time. They left shortly after that, Derek barely looking at me as he said goodbye. Jessica gave me that tight smile again and thanked me for dinner. The kids hugged me, but Emma kept asking why I seemed sad. After they drove away, I stood in my living room, surrounded by the remnants of Christmas. The tree I'd decorated alone. The stockings I'd hung for a family that didn't consider me part of it. The dishes I'd used to serve people who saw me as... what? A landlord? A caterer? A convenience? I sat down in Robert's old chair and let the truth wash over me. They didn't want me there. They'd made plans, beautiful family plans, and I wasn't included. I wasn't even an afterthought. I was nothing. That night, lying in my empty house, I realized something that should have been obvious years ago. I'd been living in a fantasy. In my mind, I was the beloved mother and grandmother, the heart of the family. In reality, I was just the woman who provided the venue. For the first time in 15 years, I let myself cry for more than just Robert. I cried for the Christmas mornings I'd spent alone preparing feasts for people who barely noticed. I cried for the emergency loans I'd given Derek that were never repaid or even acknowledged. I cried for the birthdays I'd celebrated by myself, and the holidays I'd spent cooking for people who couldn't wait to leave. But most of all, I cried because I finally understood what Derek meant when he said I wasn't part of their family. He was right, I wasn't, and maybe it was time I stopped pretending I was. Chapter 2. The Weight of Sacrifices. The days after Christmas felt different. I couldn't shake the image of Derek's face when he said I wasn't part of their family. Not angry, not apologetic, just matter of fact, like he was explaining something obvious to a child who didn't understand. I spent the week between Christmas and New Year's going through the motions of my normal routine, but everything felt hollow. I watered my plants, organized my closets, watched the news. But underneath it all, Derek's words kept echoing. Grandma isn't part of our family in that way. What way was I part of their family then? On New Year's Eve, sitting alone in my living room while fireworks exploded in the distance, I decided to find out. I went to my home office and pulled out the filing cabinet where I keep all my financial records. If I wasn't family, maybe I could at least understand what I was. The numbers told a story I'd been too blind to see. I'd bought this house in 2008, right after Robert died. Derek was 24 then, fresh out of college with a degree in business and big dreams about starting his own company. The housing market had crashed, and I got this place for $340,000, a steal for a 4-bedroom colonial in a good neighborhood. But Derek needed help. His startup required capital, he said. He had investors interested, but he needed to show them he had family backing. So I took out a second mortgage on the house I'd just bought. $60,000. I handed it over without question because that's what mothers do. They believe in their children. The startup failed within 8 months. Derek never mentioned paying me back. When I gently brought it up a year later, he got defensive. Mom, you know that money was an investment, not a loan. Investments come with risks. An investment in a company that no longer existed. Then came Jessica. They met in 2011, and Derek was smitten. She was everything I wasn't. Polished, sophisticated, from a wealthy family in San Francisco. When they got engaged in 2013, Derek came to me with another request. Mom, Jessica's parents are paying for most of the wedding, but we need help with the honeymoon, and maybe the down payment on a house. I know it's a lot to ask, but Jessica's used to a certain lifestyle, and I want to give her everything she deserves. The honeymoon to Europe cost me $15,000. The down payment on their starter home in Davis, $25,000. Again, I took out a home equity loan. Again, Derek promised it was temporary. As soon as I get established in my career, I'll pay you back with interest, Mom. You know I'm good for it. Derek got a job at a marketing firm, but it was entry level. The salary wasn't enough to maintain the lifestyle Jessica expected. So the requests kept coming. Help with the mortgage when Derek's commission was low. Help with the car payment when Jessica's old car died. Help with daycare when Emma was born, then again when Jake came along. Each time, Derek made it sound temporary. Each time I said yes because that's what family does. They help each other through rough patches. I added it all up that New Year's Eve. Over the past 15 years, I'd given Derek $127,000. Not loaned, given. Because despite his promises, he'd never paid back a single dollar. But it wasn't just the money, it was everything else. When Emma was born, I took early retirement from my teaching job so I could help with childcare. Jessica didn't trust daycare centers, she said, but she also didn't want to give up her part-time job at an art gallery. So I became the unpaid nanny 3 days a week for 2 years. When they decided to move to a bigger house in 2018, guess who helped with that down payment? Another $30,000 from my retirement savings. And when Derek's car died last year, who co-signed the loan for his new SUV because his credit wasn't good enough? I stared at the numbers until my eyes burned. $127,000 in direct financial help. Thousands more in unpaid childcare. The countless dinners I'd prepared. The birthday parties I'd hosted and paid for. The Christmas and birthday gifts that were never reciprocated. And for what? To be told I wasn't part of the family. The phone rang, startling me out of my calculations. It was Derek. Hey, Mom, happy almost New Year. His voice was cheerful, casual, no mention of Christmas, no acknowledgement of what had happened. Hello, Derek. Listen, I hate to bother you, but we've got a little situation. Jessica's car needs some major repairs, something with the transmission. The mechanic says it's going to be about $4,000. I sat there holding the phone, surrounded by 15 years of financial records, and felt something shift inside me. Derek, I said slowly, didn't you just buy that car 2 years ago? Well, yeah, but it's used. You know how these things go. Anyway, we're kind of strapped right now with the Mexico trip and everything. I was hoping maybe you could help us out. We'll pay you back as soon as Derek gets his bonus in March. There it was again. The trip to Mexico. The family trip I wasn't invited on, funded by money they didn't have because they'd spent everything on a lifestyle they couldn't afford. I see, I said. Great. I knew you'd understand. Jessica's been so stressed about this. Can you transfer the money tomorrow? We need to get the car fixed before she goes back to work on Monday. Derek, I said, my voice steady despite the trembling in my hands. When was the last time you paid me back for anything? Silence. What do you mean, Mom? I mean exactly what I asked. When was the last time you repaid any of the money I've lent you over the years? Mom, we've talked about this. You know money's been tight, and it's not like you need it, right? You've got the house, your pension, your savings. My savings that I've been using to support your family for 15 years. Support us? Mom, we never asked you to support us. You offered to help, and we appreciated it, but... Derek. I cut him off, something I'd never done before. You called me on New Year's Eve to ask for $4,000 for a car repair while you're planning a vacation to Mexico. That's different. The vacation is already paid for. With what money? Another silence. Mom, I don't understand why you're being like this. It's not like you to keep track of every penny. And there it was, the assumption that had been underlying every request for 15 years. It's not like you to keep track, as if my money was just naturally theirs to use, as if I was some inexhaustible resource, rather than a person with my own financial needs and limitations. I'm sorry, Derek, but I can't help you this time. What? Why not? Because I need to start taking care of my own future instead of funding yours. Mom, that's really selfish. We're talking about Jessica's transportation to work. This isn't some luxury. Selfish. I was selfish for finally saying no after 15 years of saying yes. Derek, I have to go. Mom, wait. Let's talk about this. Maybe we don't need the full 4,000. Maybe you could just... I hung up. I sat there in my office, surrounded by the evidence of my own financial erosion, and felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Clarity. Derek called back 3 times. Back. I didn't answer. He left voicemails, each one more frustrated than the last. In the final one, his tone had shifted from pleading to accusatory. Mom, I don't know what's gotten into you, but this isn't fair. You're punishing us for something, and I don't know what we did wrong. Jessica's really upset. She thought she could count on you. We all did. I guess we were wrong. I listened to that voicemail twice. She thought she could count on you. We all did. Not, we love you and value you as part of our family. Not, we appreciate everything you've done for us. Just, we thought we could count on you. Like I was a bank, a reliable source of funds. That night, I made a list. Not of what I'd given them, but of what they'd given me in return. The list was short. Derek called me on my birthday, usually. He remembered Christmas and Mother's Day, though Jessica always picked out the gifts. They invited me to the kids' birthday parties and school events, when it was convenient. Derek helped me move furniture once, 3 years ago when I redecorated the living room. That was it. 15 years of support, and I could summarize their reciprocation in 3 sentences. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in 15 years. I called Derek first. Mom, I'm so glad you called. I was worried about you after last night. Derek, I need to ask you something, and I want an honest answer. Of course. Do you consider me part of your family? Mom, what kind of question is that? Of course you're family. Then why wasn't I invited to Mexico? Silence. Mom, we've been over this. It's just a different kind of trip. What kind? You know, a nuclear family trip. Parents and kids. I see. And what kind of family am I? You're our extended family. You're important to us, Mom, but... Derek, I want you to listen to me very carefully. I am your mother. I raised you by myself after your father died. I put you through college. I supported your business dreams, your marriage, your children, your lifestyle. For 15 years, I have been your safety net, your backup plan, your source of emergency funds. Mom, I'm not finished. You have taken $127,000 from me over the past 15 years. You have never paid back a single dollar. You have used my house as your free venue, my time as your free childcare, my money as your free bank. And then you tell your daughter that I'm not part of your family. Mom, you're being dramatic. We never asked you to keep track. Derek, I'm done. Done with what? Done being your ATM. Done being your convenience. Done pretending that what we have is a real family relationship when what you really want from me is financial support. That's not fair, Mom. You're twisting everything around. Am I? Derek, answer me honestly. If I didn't have money, if I couldn't help you financially, how often would you call me? How often would you visit? He didn't answer. That's what I thought. Mom, you're being ridiculous. Of course we'd still... Derek, I'm going to hang up now. And I want you to think about something. You told Emma that I'm not part of your family. Maybe it's time I started believing you. I hung up before he could respond. For the first time in 15 years, I felt like I could breathe. The week after my confrontation with Derek was the quietest I'd experienced in years. No phone calls asking for money. No sudden visits with new problems that required my immediate financial attention. No texts from Jessica about emergencies that always seemed to cost exactly what they had in their checking account. Just silence. And in that silence, I started to see my life clearly for the first time in 15 years. I walked through my house, really looked at it. 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, a formal dining room I only used when Derek's family visited. A living room with furniture arranged to accommodate their visits. A kitchen stocked with foods the grandkids liked, even though they only came over maybe once a month. This entire house had been organized around people who saw me as extended family. On Tuesday morning, I did something I hadn't done since Robert died. I called a real estate agent. Mrs. Patterson? This is Margaret Coleman. I was wondering if you could give me a rough idea of what my house might be worth in today's market. Patricia Patterson had sold me the house 15 years ago. Her voice brightened immediately. Margaret, how wonderful to hear from you. Are you thinking of downsizing? I'm exploring my options. Well, I'd be happy to do a market analysis for you. Can I come by this afternoon? That afternoon, Patricia walked through my house with her tablet, taking notes and photos. I watched her examine the crown molding I'd restored, the hardwood floors I'd refinished, the kitchen I'd renovated 3 years ago with money from my retirement fund. Margaret, this is spectacular. You've maintained this place beautifully. Thank you. The market in this neighborhood has really taken off. Houses like yours are selling within days of listing. She showed me the numbers on her tablet. My breath caught in my throat. Are you certain about this figure? Absolutely. I'd estimate your house is worth between $680,000 and $720,000, possibly more if we get multiple offers. I sat down heavily on my living room sofa. I'd bought the house for $340,000. Even after 2 home equity loans totaling $90,000, I'd still clear over $500,000. Margaret, are you all right? I'm fine. Just surprised. It's a seller's market right now. If you're serious about selling, I'd recommend moving quickly. After Patricia left, I sat in my kitchen and stared at the market analysis she'd printed for me. $680,000 minimum. More money than I'd ever imagined having at one time. Enough money to disappear completely. The thought came from nowhere and everywhere at once. I could sell this house, take my money, and start over somewhere else. Somewhere Derek and Jessica couldn't find me to ask for emergency loans. Somewhere I wouldn't be extended family, because I wouldn't be anyone's family at all. The idea should have terrified me. Instead, it felt like the first deep breath I'd taken in years. I started researching online that night. Small coastal towns in Northern California, places where a single woman could buy a modest house and live comfortably on a teacher's pension plus investment income, places where no one knew I had a son who'd never paid me back a single dollar. By Thursday, I'd found 3 possibilities: Half Moon Bay, Fort Bragg, Mendocino, all within driving distance of San Francisco, but far enough away that I wouldn't accidentally run into Derek or Jessica at the grocery store. On Friday, Derek called. Mom, we need to talk. Hello, Derek. I've been thinking about our conversation, and I think there's been a misunderstanding. I waited. Jessica and I talked it over, and we realized maybe we haven't been as appreciative as we should have been. We want to make things right. I see. So we've decided to invite you to Mexico with us. The irony was so thick I almost laughed. A week ago, this invitation would have made me cry with gratitude. Now it just sounded like another manipulation. That's very generous, Derek, but I can't go. Why not? You said you felt left out, so we're including you. I have other plans. What other plans? I'm selling the house. Silence. Long, heavy silence. You're what? I'm putting the house on the market. Patricia Patterson is listing it next week. Mom, that's crazy. Why would you sell your house? Because it's too big for me. I don't need 4 bedrooms. But where will you go? I'm looking at some places on the coast. Mom, you can't just leave. What about us? What about the kids? What about them? They'd made it clear I wasn't part of their nuclear family. What difference would it make if I lived here or 3 hours away? Derek, you'll be fine. But Mom, we need you here. There it was. Not we love you or we'll miss you. We need you. For what, Derek? For emergencies. For help when things get tough. You mean for money. That's not fair. It's not just about money, isn't it? Mom, you're our family. You can't just abandon us. Derek, you told your daughter I wasn't part of your family. Now I'm simply agreeing with you. I didn't mean it like that. And you know it. How did you mean it? I meant for that specific trip, not in general. I see. So I'm family when you need money, but not family when you're planning vacations. Mom, you're twisting my words. Am I? Derek, in the past 15 years, how many times have you called me just to see how I was doing? Not because you needed something, but just to talk? He didn't answer. How many times have you invited me to dinner at your house? How many times have you offered to help me with anything? How many times have you paid for a meal when we went out together? Still silence. Derek, I love you. You're my son, and that will never change. But I'm done pretending we have a relationship when what we really have is a one-way financial arrangement. Mom, if this is about the money, we can work something out. We can start paying you back. With what money? You're borrowing $4,000 for a car repair. We'll figure it out. We'll make payments. Derek, you've had 15 years to figure it out. You've never made a single payment on anything you've borrowed from me. Mom, please, don't sell the house. Let's talk about this in person. I've made up my mind. What if we paid rent? What if we helped with the mortgage? Now I did laugh, but it wasn't a happy sound. Derek, you can't afford to fix your car. How are you going to help with my mortgage? We'll cancel the Mexico trip. No, don't do that. But, Derek, go to Mexico. Have a wonderful time with your nuclear family. When you get back, I'll probably be living somewhere else. Mom, you can't be serious. I'm completely serious. I hung up before he could say anything else. That night, I called Patricia Patterson. Patricia? It's Margaret Coleman. I'd like to list the house. Wonderful. When would you like to start showings? As soon as possible. I can have the listing live by Sunday morning. We could start showing it Monday. Perfect. After I hung up, I walked through my house one more time. But this time, I wasn't seeing it as the home I'd built for my family. I was seeing it as an asset, a very valuable asset that was going to buy me freedom. For the first time in 15 years, I was planning something just for myself. The house sold in 18 hours. Patricia called me Monday evening, her voice practically vibrating with excitement. Margaret, we have 3 offers, all above asking price. 1 is cash, no contingencies. I sat down at my kitchen table, the same table where I'd written so many checks to bail Derek out of his financial problems. How much above asking? The highest offer is $735,000. Cash. 30-day close. $735,000. I'd bought this house for $340,000 and put maybe $50,000 into improvements over the years. After paying off the remaining mortgage and home equity loans, I'd walk away with over $500,000. I'll take the cash offer. Margaret, don't you want to think about it? This is happening very fast. I've been thinking about it for 15 years. I'll take the cash offer. All right, I'll call them tonight. We can sign papers tomorrow morning. After I hung up, I sat in my kitchen and felt something I hadn't experienced in decades. Pure, undiluted relief. The next morning, while I was signing the sale papers, Derek was boarding a plane to Mexico with Jessica and the kids. He'd left me 3 voicemails over the weekend, each one more desperate than the last. Mom, please don't do anything drastic while we're gone. We'll talk when we get back. Mom, I've been thinking about what you said, and you're right. We need to change how we do things. Mom, Jessica feels terrible about the family comment. She wants to apologize when we get home. I deleted each message without finishing it. The closing was scheduled for February 15th. I had 30 days to pack up 15 years of my life and disappear before Derek returned from his family vacation. I spent the first week of February looking at houses online. Not big houses. I was done with big houses. I wanted something small, manageable, mine, a place where I could have friends over without worrying about whether there was enough seating for Derek's family. A place where I could decorate for myself instead of arranging everything around their visits. I found it on a Wednesday afternoon. A small cottage in Half Moon Bay, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, with a garden and an ocean view. The listing price was $485,000. With my sale proceeds, I could buy it outright and still have $200,000 left over for investments. I called the listing agent that same day. I'd like to make an offer. Would you like to schedule a viewing first? No, I'll take it sight unseen if the inspection comes back clean. There was a pause. That's unusual. I'm not a usual buyer. I made a full-price cash offer with a closing date of February 20th, 5 days after my Sacramento house closed. The seller accepted immediately. Derek and Jessica returned from Mexico on February 12th, tanned and relaxed and completely unaware that their financial safety net had vanished while they were drinking margaritas on the beach. Derek called me that evening. Mom, we're back. We had an amazing time. The kids loved it, and Jessica and I had a long talk about our relationship with you. We want to take you out to dinner this weekend to discuss some changes. I'm busy this weekend. Mom, come on. We really need to talk. Derek, we've talked enough. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm moving on Saturday. Dead silence. Moving where? Half Moon Bay. Mom, you can't be serious. You bought a house without even telling us? I didn't need to tell you. It's my life. But what about our talk? What about working things out? Derek, you had 15 years to work things out. You chose to work them out from a beach in Mexico instead. That's not fair. We already had the trip planned. Yes, you did. The family trip I wasn't invited to. Mom, we've apologized for that. No, Derek. Jessica feels terrible according to your voicemail. That's not the same as an apology. Fine, I'm sorry. We're both sorry. There, are you happy? I almost laughed. This was his version of an apology. Forced, resentful, delivered only because he was losing something he wanted to keep. Derek, I'm hanging up now. Mom, wait, you can't just leave. What if we need you? And there it was. The real concern. Not that they'd miss me, but that they'd need me. For what? For emergencies. Derek, you're 32 years old. You have a college degree and a job. You'll figure it out. But Mom, Derek, I have to go. I'm packing. I hung up and turned off my phone. That weekend, Derek showed up at my house with Jessica and the kids. I was loading boxes into a U-Haul truck when they pulled into the driveway. Mom! Emma ran toward me. Daddy says you're moving! I hugged her tight. Of all the things I'd miss about my old life, the kids topped the list. I am, sweetheart. Grandma's moving to a house by the ocean. can we visit you?" Before I could answer, Derek stormed over. "Mom, this is insane. You sold the house without even discussing it with us." "Derek, it's my house. I don't need to discuss my decisions with anyone." "But we had plans. We were going to start paying you rent." "With what money?" "We'll get the money. I'm getting a promotion soon, and Jessica's thinking about going back to work full-time." Thinking about getting soon. The same vague promises he'd been making for 15 years. "Derek, I've made my decision." Jessica stepped forward, looking uncomfortable, but determined. "Margaret, I owe you an apology. I never meant for you to feel excluded from the family." "Jessica, you told Emma I wasn't part of your family. How else was I supposed to feel?" "I misspoke. I was trying to explain why it was just the 4 of us going on the trip." "And why was it just the 4 of you?" She looked at Derek, then back at me. Because we wanted time alone as a nuclear family." "I see. So I'm not part of your nuclear family. You're part of our extended family." "Jessica, I'm Derek's mother. I'm not his cousin or his aunt. I'm his mother." "I know that. But what? But you're not our immediate family." The words hung in the air like a slap. Even Derek looked shocked at his wife's bluntness. "Jessica," he said quietly. "What? It's true. She's Derek's mother, but she's not part of our household. She doesn't live with us. She's not responsible for our daily decisions." I stared at her, and for the first time, I felt grateful. Grateful that she'd finally been honest about how they saw me. "You're absolutely right, Jessica. I'm not part of your immediate family. I'm not part of your household, and I'm no longer responsible for your financial decisions either." "That's not what I meant, isn't it?" I turned to Derek. "Your wife just explained exactly what I am to your family. Extended, peripheral, not immediate, not nuclear, not essential." "Thank you, Jessica, for the clarity." Derek looked panicked. "Mom, she didn't mean it like that." "Derek, she meant exactly what she said. And she's right. I should have listened years ago." I picked up another box and carried it to the truck. "Mom, please, let's talk about this rationally." "I am being rational. You've made it clear that I'm extended family. Extended family doesn't need to live nearby. But what if something happens? What if we need help?" "Derek, you're adults. You'll figure it out." "Mom, I can't believe you're doing this to us." I stopped loading boxes and turned to face him. "Derek, I'm not doing anything to you. I'm doing something for me. For the first time in 15 years. That night, I slept in my empty house for the last time. Tomorrow, I'd be living by the ocean, in a house where no one could find me to ask for money. I'd never felt so free." I moved to Half Moon Bay on February 20th, a Tuesday morning when the fog was so thick I could barely see the ocean from my new front porch. But I could hear it. The constant rhythmic sound of waves that would become the soundtrack to my new life. My cottage was perfect. Small enough that I could clean it in an hour, but with everything I needed. A cozy living room with a fireplace, a tiny kitchen with a window over the sink that would show me the ocean once the fog lifted, and a second bedroom that I turned into an art studio. I hadn't painted since college, but something about the ocean light made me want to try again. For the first week, I lived in blissful silence. My phone stayed off most of the time. I unpacked slowly, deliberately, placing each item exactly where I wanted it. No one else's needs to consider, no one else's preferences to accommodate. I hung my pictures where they looked best to me, not where they'd be convenient for guests. I bought groceries I wanted to eat, not foods that would appeal to kids. I set up my small dining table for one person and felt no sadness about it. On my 8th day in Half Moon Bay, I made a friend. I was struggling with a bag of potting soil at the local nursery when a woman about my age approached. "Need a hand with that?" "I'd appreciate it, thank you." She helped me load the soil into my car, then extended her hand. "I'm Carol. I don't think we've met." "Margaret, I just moved here from Sacramento. Welcome to Half Moon Bay. Are you retired?" "Recently, yes." "Well, if you're looking for things to do, there's a book club that meets every Wednesday at the library. Very casual, very friendly. You should join us." I hadn't belonged to a book club since my 20s. Derek always needed something on Wednesday evenings, help with the kids, a ride somewhere, assistance with some project. I'd like that. Wonderful. This Wednesday we're discussing The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Have you read it? No, but I can get it today. Perfect. 7 o'clock at the library. I'll watch for you. As I drove home with my potting soil and a new book, I realized I was smiling. When was the last time I'd made plans that were just for me? Derek called that afternoon. I'd been screening his calls for 2 weeks, but something made me answer this one. "Mom, finally, I've been trying to reach you for days." "I've been busy." "Mom, we need to talk. Jessica's pregnant." I felt a familiar tug in my chest, the old instinct to drop everything and focus on their needs. Congratulations. Mom, this changes everything. We're going to need help. The mortgage on our house is getting harder to manage, and with another baby coming. And there it was. Jessica was pregnant, so they needed money. Derek, I'm sure you'll figure it out. Mom, you don't understand. Jessica's going to have to quit her job. We can't afford daycare for 3 kids. Then maybe you should have thought about that before you got pregnant. Silence. Mom, that's a terrible thing to say. Is it? Derek, you couldn't afford the 2 children you have without my help. Why would you have a third? Because we wanted a bigger family. You wanted a bigger family that I would help pay for. Mom, that's not fair. Derek, what's not fair is expecting me to fund your family planning decisions. We don't expect you to fund anything. We just thought, since you have all that money from the house sale, my money, Derek, from my house. Mom, you're being cruel. I'm being realistic. You're 32 years old with 2 children and another on the way. You need to start making decisions based on what you can afford, not what you can borrow from me. Mom, we're family. Family helps each other. Derek, you told me I wasn't part of your immediate family. Extended family doesn't have the same financial obligations. Mom, please, we really need help. With what, specifically? The mortgage payment. Just for a few months while we figure things out. How much? $2,500 a month. I laughed out loud. $2,500 a month was more than I'd spent on anything in my entire adult life except housing. Derek, absolutely not. Mom, Derek, I'm hanging up now. Congratulations on the pregnancy. I hope everything goes well. I hung up and turned off my phone. That evening, I read 50 pages of my book club selection and felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Anticipation. I was looking forward to Wednesday evening, to discussing a book with strangers who didn't want anything from me except conversation. Derek called 6 more times over the next few days. I didn't answer. He left voicemails that grew increasingly desperate. Mom, please call me back. We really need to talk about this. Mom, Jessica's doctor says she needs to reduce stress. This situation with you is making her sick. Mom, I don't understand what we did wrong. We apologized. We invited you to Mexico. What more do you want? What more did I want? I wanted to never hear from them again unless it was because they genuinely missed me, not because they needed money. The book club was wonderful. 8 women, all in their 50s and 60s, all with fascinating stories about their lives. Carol was a retired teacher like me. Susan had been a nurse. Linda had run her own catering business for 30 years. Beth was a widow who'd moved to Half Moon Bay after her husband died, just like me. We talked about the book for an hour, then spent another hour just talking about life. No one asked me for anything. No one needed me to solve their problems or fund their dreams. When I got home that night, there were 3 missed calls from Derek and 2 from Jessica. I deleted them all. A month later, Derek showed up at my cottage. I was in my garden, planting tomatoes, when I heard a car in my driveway. I looked up to see Derek getting out of his SUV, the one I'd co-signed for. He looked tired, stressed, older than his 32 years. Mom? Derek, how did you find me? I hired a private investigator. I stared at him. He'd spent money they didn't have to find me. What do you want? I want to talk to you. About what? About us. About our family. Derek, I'm not part of your immediate family. Remember? Mom, Jessica was wrong to say that. We both know she was wrong. Was she? Because it seems to me she was just being honest about how you both feel. Derek sat down on my front step without being invited. Mom, we're losing the house. I kept planting tomatoes. I'm sorry to hear that. We're 3 months behind on the mortgage. The bank is starting foreclosure proceedings. That's unfortunate. Mom, we need $45,000 to catch up and get current. I laughed. I couldn't help it. Derek? You need $45,000 that you don't have, and your solution is to ask me for it? You're our only option. No, Derek. Bankruptcy is an option. Selling your house and buying something smaller is an option. Getting a second job is an option. I am not an option. Mom, please, we'll pay you back. With what money? You can't even make your current mortgage payment. I'm getting a promotion. Derek, stop. Just stop. I stood up and faced him. You hired a private investigator to find me so you could ask me for $45,000. Do you see how insane that is? We were desperate. You're always desperate, Derek. You've been desperate for 15 years, but your desperation is not my emergency. Mom, if we lose the house, we'll have nowhere to go. You'll find somewhere. People do. What about the kids? What about Emma and Jake? What about them? They need stability. Then maybe you should have provided it instead of living beyond your means for their entire lives. Derek stared at me like I was a stranger. I don't recognize you anymore. Mom? Good, because the person you used to recognize was being taken advantage of. He sat there for a long moment, then stood up. This isn't over, Mom. Yes, Derek, it is. I watched him drive away, then went back to my tomatoes. That evening, I called my lawyer and changed my will. Everything would go to Emma and Jake in a trust they couldn't access until they turned 30. Derek would get nothing. For the first time in my adult life, I was completely free. 6 months later, I was sitting on my front porch with my morning coffee when I saw a familiar car pull into my driveway. Not Derek's SUV this time, but Jessica's sedan. My heart clenched as I watched Emma and Jake climb out of the back seat. They looked older. Emma had grown at least 2 inches, and Jake had lost a front tooth. They ran toward me with the same enthusiasm they'd always shown, and I felt that familiar tug of love mixed with pain. Grandma! Emma threw her arms around me. We missed you so much. I missed you too, sweetheart. Jake hugged me next, a little more reserved than his sister, but still warm. Grandma, why did you move so far away? Before I could answer, Jessica approached. She looked different. Tired, humbled, her designer clothes replaced with simple jeans and a t-shirt. Her pregnancy was showing now. A small round bump under her loose shirt. Margaret, thank you for letting us visit. I didn't know you were coming. I know. I should have called first, but I was afraid you wouldn't see us. She was probably right. How did the kids react when you lost the house? Jessica's face crumpled slightly. They don't know we lost it. We told them we decided to move to a smaller place. Where are you living now? Derek's cousin has a duplex in Stockton. We're renting the downstairs unit. I knew Derek's cousin Brian. Nice enough man, but Stockton was a come down from Davis. And a duplex was definitely a come down from their 4-bedroom house. How is Derek? He's struggling. He had to take a second job delivering food at night. He's working almost 70 hours a week now. Good, I thought, but didn't say. Emma tugged on my sleeve. Grandma, can we see your house? Mommy says you live by the ocean now. Of course, sweetheart. I gave them the tour, watching their faces light up as they saw the ocean from my kitchen window. They loved my tiny art studio and begged me to show them my paintings. I'd gotten quite good over the past few months. Watercolor seascapes mostly, but also some portraits of my new friends from book club. Grandma, you're like a real artist now, Jake said, examining a painting of the harbor at sunset. Thank you, Jake. I'm learning. While the kids explored my small garden, Jessica and I sat on the front porch. Margaret, I owe you a real apology. Jessica, we've been over this. No, we haven't. Not really. I said some terrible things to you, and I need you to know that I understand now how wrong I was. I waited. When we lost the house, when Derek had to take that second job, when I realized we might not be able to afford groceries some weeks, that's when I understood what you meant to our family. I meant money to your family. No. Her voice was firm. You meant security, stability, safety. And I destroyed that because I was jealous. Jealous of what? Of how much Derek loved you. Of how the kids lit up when they saw you. Of how you were this constant, reliable presence in their lives when my own mother lived across the country and barely called. I hadn't expected this level of honesty from Jessica. I felt like I had to compete with you for Derek's attention. So I convinced myself that you were interfering. That you were too involved in our lives. I convinced Derek that we needed to be more independent. And now? Now I realize that independence and isolation aren't the same thing. I destroyed the best thing about Derek's family because I was insecure. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Margaret, I know we have no right to ask for anything from you, but the kids miss you terribly. They ask about you every day. What do you tell them? The truth, that Grandma moved away because Mommy and Daddy made some mistakes. I looked out at Emma and Jake, who were now collecting shells they'd found in my garden. Jessica, I want you to understand something. I don't hate you or Derek, but I can't go back to the way things were. I know. I can't be your emergency fund anymore. I can't be the person you call when you need money. I understand. And I can't pretend that what happened didn't happen. You excluded me from your family, and then you only wanted me back when you needed financial help. You're right. But I paused, watching my grandchildren. The kids are innocent in all of this. They are. I want to have a relationship with Emma and Jake. A real relationship, not based on money or obligation. I want that too. But it has to be on my terms. Jessica nodded. What are your terms? You can bring the kids here once a month to visit. No overnight stays. This house is too small. Derek is welcome to come, but only if he can be here without asking me for money or discussing his financial problems. That's fair. And Jessica, if you ever use the children to manipulate me, If you ever suggest that I'm hurting them by not helping you financially, these visits stop immediately. I understand. Do you? Because for 15 years, Derek has used guilt and family obligation to get money from me. I won't allow that anymore. Margaret, I promise you, we're not here for money. We're here because the kids need their grandmother. I studied her face, looking for signs of deception, but I saw only exhaustion and regret. All right, let's try once-a-month visits and see how it goes. That afternoon, I took Emma and Jake down to the beach. We collected shells and built sand castles and watched the waves. For 2 hours, I was just their grandmother, not a source of funds or a solution to their parents' problems. When it was time for them to leave, Emma hugged me tight. Grandma, will you teach me to paint next time we visit? I'd love to, sweetheart. Jake hung back a little, then approached me shyly. Grandma, Daddy said you're mad at us. My heart broke a little. Jake, I'm not mad at you or Emma. I'm not even really mad at Daddy. Sometimes adults make mistakes, and they have to figure out how to fix them. Are you going to come back home? No, sweetheart. This is my home now. But you can always come visit me here. Promise? Promise. After they left, I sat on my porch and watched the sunset. 6 months ago, I'd been financially supporting a family that didn't respect me. Tonight, I was a grandmother who could offer love without conditions, time without obligations, and attention without expecting anything in return. For the first time in 15 years, my relationship with my family felt healthy. 2 weeks later, Carol invited me to join her and some friends for dinner at a new restaurant in town. As we sat around the table, laughing and sharing stories, I realized something profound. These women, Carol, Susan, Linda, Beth, and 3 others whose friendship I'd earned simply by being myself, these women cared about me without wanting anything from me. They called me to check on me when I was sick. They invited me to events because they enjoyed my company. They listened to my stories and shared their own. This was what family was supposed to feel like. I'd spent so many years focused on the family I was born into, and the family Derek created, that I'd forgotten families can be chosen too. That night, I updated my will one more time. Emma and Jake would still inherit everything, but I added a provision for my chosen family too. Carol would get my art supplies and paintings. Susan would get my books. Linda would get my garden tools. Women who'd known me for 6 months were getting bequests because they'd shown me more genuine affection than my son had in 15 years. I closed my laptop and walked out to my garden. The tomatoes I'd planted the day Derek found me were heavy with fruit now. I picked a few for tomorrow's salad and smiled. I'd built something here, something that belonged entirely to me. For the first time in my adult life, I was exactly where I wanted to be.